Hey, it's Mitch here, and in today's video, we're going to talk about momentum. So how you can start to break through, how you can start to get to that next level, and how you can start to have that consistent, sustainable, and exponential growth, both personally for yourself, but also with your business, and how you can start to get to that next level and break through your barriers, break through that glass ceiling, and get to that next level. And it all comes down to momentum and riding the wave of momentum. And first off, I want to tell you a personal story about myself and how I really start to architect and really create this formula for momentum, and how you can do what I like to call momentum stacking, and how you can start to achieve this exponential growth with yourself and start to grow your business to new heights. And we're also going to talk about a concept called patterns of existence. So how you can start to really reverse engineer, get down to the root cause, the driving force behind your actions, your habits, and the subconscious things that you're doing on a daily basis that are keeping you in the same spot over time, and you feel like you're stuck and you can't really get to that next level. So we're going to really rip that apart and also go into the process of how you can start to implement this and start to take yourself, your personal development, your growth, your success, the amount of money you have in your bank account to that next level, and start to ride this momentum wave and start to get to that next level. So I'm very, very excited to get started. So let's jump right in. So first off, let's define the word momentum. So there's a lot of different definitions. There's one that's in the physics version of how momentum is coming to be, with mass and velocity and all this stuff. But then the definition that I like and what we're going to apply here is this, and I'll just read it out to you. So basically, momentum is the impetus and the driving force gained by the development of a process on a course of events. So I'll repeat that. So it's the impetus and driving force gained by the development of a process or course of events. So it's essentially, the momentum is the course of events, or the actions you're doing, or the things that are happening over time. That's the driving force behind getting you to that next level, between, really getting this process and really seeing that momentum, that constant push forward, that driving force that's just pushing you forward. It's almost like you have this energy that's pushing you and helping you to get to that next level. It's that vibrational pull that's pulling you towards that direction which you want to go to, right? So it's all about, understanding how to play with momentum, how to ride momentum, how to architect momentum, and really the formula behind it, which we're going to talk about, and how you can start to leverage momentum to get to that next level. Now I want to tell you a little story because, I know a lot of people go through this. I went through it, and I put myself through the ringer with this stuff, and it was one of the biggest growth hacks, biggest thing that happened to me growth-wise within my life that changed everything for me. And so when I was grinding, I was working in my dad's basement. I was just putting my nose to the grindstone. I was waking up every day. I would literally have my bed 5 feet away from my desk, and I'd wake up, walk over to my desk, work 18 hours, grind, do calls, put in the work, send emails, do cold calling, go door to door. I was doing all these things that everyone was telling me to do the outreach, go get some clients, go stir up some meetings, go pitch some new deals. And so I was doing all these things. I was putting my nose to the grindstone. I was waking up every single day, putting in the action, putting in the work to get the results that I wanted. But I was still stuck. I was doing all these things, but I was still stuck in the mud, and I wasn't seeing any really growth or really success within myself or my business. And I was in the same place I was, a few months prior, and maybe even a year behind that. So I wasn't really seeing what I deemed, which was my standard, which I wanted to get to, which was that minimum 10K a month mark. I was making a few grand here and there, but it was never consistent, or it never was exponential, growing to even 100K a month mark, which was my goal. And obviously professionally moving out of my dad's basement, all these things, and I was still in the same place that I was a few months prior. And what I came to realize was, just like in a room, how you have the thermostat. Every time that you have, really hot air coming in, it regulates it back down, and it doesn't go too low so it gets really cold. It kind of just regulates it and keeps the medium, which is at any given time, room temperature. I'm sure you heard this before, right? So you're staying at room temperature, and that, if you look at yourself on an average day, you're basically operating, or you're basically, someone sees you, it's you're at room temperature. It's you're the average of the peak and the trough of your circumstances, right? And so the biggest thing for me was really just being conscious of this and seeing it, because I'll give you a really, really prime example because, when I was still working in the basement, I recently had just dropped out of college and I was starting this business, this marketing company, and I wanted to really create a success out of myself, but I was still hanging around people that were basically basically interrupting my momentum, and every time I'd get to a peak and I'd feel like I'm about to break through, I'd just self-sabotage myself. I'd bring it back down. I get to a certain level, bring it back down. And it's like I was, oscillating between these two extremes, and I was never seeing anything and never seeing any success. I'd get to a certain level, maybe like close a client here, and then maybe I'd lose them or whatever, and I would never like really have that consistent growth. So like the exponential curve, right? That J curve that everyone talks about, right? I never really experienced that, and what would happen was I started to see my like patterns of existence, how I was operating, my habits, the subconscious things that were pulling me back down, that were the gravitational pull that was like pulling me down. And I realized that it was these patterns of existence. And every time I would go out, I would be grinding all week, and then I'd go hang out with my friends. I'd maybe drink some alcohol, maybe smoke some weed, and then I would stay up later, and then my sleep schedule would be messed up. And then by Monday, when Monday rolls around, I would wake up a little bit early, and I wouldn't go to the gym in the morning. And if you remember in my last video, if you haven't seen it, I'll link it below. It's basically how you can put together set routines and how you can start to create confidence in your sales. We go into routines, all that stuff, so I'll link it below. But essentially, with that, if I don't go to the gym in the morning, I don't like get in the right state, because sales and anything that you're doing is all about managing your state. So when I was going through that process, I would not go to the gym, and then I'd feel worse, and then I'd perform worse, and then I'd go down, and then I wouldn't close clients, and then I'd be in a worse situation financially than I was before, and I was still grinding in my dad's basement, and I wasn't, getting anywhere, right? And then I found like those are the patterns, but there was always like an underlying causality from the effect, right? So I'd kind of trace it back. So I started to really deeply study and observe and become hyper aware of these subconscious things that I was doing that were putting me back into that negative feedback loop that was bringing me down, that was pulling me, down to the troughs when I wanted to break through the peaks, right? And so what was happening was I started to really study myself, become hyper aware, conscious of these things, and then put together an architect new habits, decision-making processes, principles, and standards for myself and my life, so I can start to break through. Because what you become and what you achieve is not the sum of like your wildest dreams. Like I know everyone talks about like think positive, all these things like with just manifesting different things. And yeah, that's cool. Like I strongly believe in that manifestation, all this stuff. But you don't become your wildest dreams. You become the lowest version of yourself in which you can accept. So it's all about setting standards for yourself. So that was the biggest thing for me, was setting standards, setting set rules and principles that I had to follow, that I had to be relentless and I had to be disciplined with, and have that self-control to put into place. Because every time I started to do that, I started seeing really good results with my life. And then when something would come at me, I would just knock it out of the way and I wouldn't even pay attention to it. And I would just be focused on doing these things. And then once I started to see a little break past my peak, that's when I set the new standard, right? So once I hit that $10,000 a month mark, that was my new standard. I can't do anything less than that now. So if I isolate below, I'll do whatever it takes to get past that line. But I now set that as the new floor, and now I was shooting for a new ceiling, which was like $30K a month. So now I basically, 3x my goal to get to that next level, right? And then so every time I'd come down, that was my baseline, and I'd start to break through that next level, and now that's my new floor, right? And that's how you can start to what I call momentum stack, and I'll talk about this in vivid detail. I'll even give you some diagrams and some cheat sheet which you can use, so you can start to plan this out and architect it for yourself as well. But essentially, that's what was going on with me, and I started to see the underlying causality of it, like the root cause, and I traced it back downstream, and I found what the root cause was, and I fixed it. And that would help me, boom, break through. And then once I had that breakthrough moment, I was still essentially doing the same things that I was doing before, like grinding, I was making calls, doing all these things. But once I started to really be conscious of that, and also like whenever I had a certain amount of money in my bank account, I'd maybe go spend it on something, I'd maybe go do something stupid. And once I started to be conscious of these, then I could hit that financial goals that I wanted to hit. Now it's a new ceiling, or the new floor, and now I have a new ceiling which I'm going to break through, right? And really the ceiling is uncapped because you're always trying to grow and expand, right? So you don't want to really set yourself a ceiling, but you want to set goals, right? That's your goal you want to hit. And now once you smash that goal, that's the new floor. And now you set a new goal and you start to stack it up. And that's how you get that, exponential growth curve. So now I want to share with you guys a diagram of this. So it's called the patterns of existence. Basically just, catching your patterns, observing your patterns, becoming hyper aware of your patterns and how it's subconsciously dictating your life and pulling you down and pulling you to the trough, which you can see in this diagram here. So you guys can see that. Hopefully it's not backwards. But see, you have on this side here, you have the activity, and across here you have the time, right? So this is time, like maybe a year, a couple months, whatever. And then you have the activity on what you're doing on a daily basis, right? Maybe making the calls, maybe doing the, setting appointments, pitching clients, going to the gym, all these different things. So these could be a whole wide array of things in your personal and business and professional life. So this goes into, everything. So you have, for example, the peak, so the height that you get to. So for example, when I was grinding in my basement, I would get to a certain number in my bank account, and then I'd go spend it, or I'd do something stupid with it, or I'd buy another course. I'd do something dumb, and then my money, my account would go back down to a certain limit, and I wouldn't let it go. Like obviously it started to grow, but back in the day, like if it went below 2K, then I would be like absolutely freaking out trying to get it past like that 8K mark, and then I'd start to do some more work, close more clients, and start to get to that next level. So it all comes into like and a good way to see this is like look at your bank statements, look at where you are at a given month for your revenue in your business, and see where it oscillates from. So what's the peak, what's the trough, and what's the medium. So if someone were to look at your business on an average month or your bank account, that would be like the equilibrium point. And it's good to see like bank account and all this stuff because it's like quantifiable numbers that you can really start to see objectively, and it's actual data points that you can see. Because some of that other stuff, like for example, when you go to the gym or you eat healthier, it's like less quantifiable. It's more ambiguous, as you could say, or and so you don't really know, like you can't see the actual quantifiable numbers. It's just how you feel, maybe how you act and all this stuff, right? But you want to see like when you eat healthy food, when you're going to the gym, when you're doing all these things consistently, you have this peak, and that's essentially where the peak of your income, peak of your personal growth, peak of your how you feel, your state, all these things will be the peak here. And then you bring yourself back down, like I said, like the thermostat, like in the room, this is like room temperature of what it would be on an average given test of the temperature. That's what it would be, right? You'd see like, for example, 71 degrees is what your house is, then that's what the average would be. But it kind of isolates maybe between 74 and like 68, and the medium is like, that's that 71 point. And so this would be you on that average point, right? So you want to be conscious of everything. So this goes into your personal finances, your business finances, your gym, your habits, your routines, and also like the self-sabotaging things that hold you back. For example, like going out with friends, partying, drinking, all these things, you're going to start to see a pattern of when one thing happens, it's like a domino effect, right? So if one of these things goes in line and you have a trough here, then everything else is going to have a trough, and that's what's going to bring you down. So you want to catch the point here where you're on the way down so you can start to, go higher, which I'll show you another diagram on how you can start to do a recuperation or recovery and break through to that next level. But essentially, you'll start to see these patterns. Like when one thing goes, everything kind of goes. Like I said, when I'd go out on weekends and I'd drink with my friends back when I was living at home in my dad's basement, boom, everything started to domino. Success, everything was self-sabotaging. My fitness lacked, my health lacked, all these things started to lack. So there's going to be one thing that really dictates and it's going to hold you back, and you need to catch your patterns of existence and study them. And I'm going to, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a worksheet that you can fill out to catch these and start to put them in place, because this will be the most eye-opening thing for you, and it's helped me tremendously in my life, and I know it will for you too. But first, it's about creating like a little diagram like this and mapping out what's the peak, do it for everything that you have. You know, the state of your car, your office, your house, your room, what days you go to the gym, you know, whether the level of your bank account, everything here, and also the lows. What's the low points? Where do you put yourself to? And this is the standard, right? So you want to kind of raise the standard for yourself and start to set a new floor and start to really break through that to that next level. So this is your patterns of existence, and you want to map this out. So this next phase is called, what I like to call like the recuperation or like the recovery phase, and I'll explain why. And this is how you can start to really create those breakthroughs, really smash through those barriers. And so this is what this one looks like. So you can see here, and I'll explain it. So same thing, you have the activity on this side, and you have the time that's going across here. And so I'll just see so you can see that. And so you still have the peak, but then you have the trough here, so the low point, and then you have basically you broke through this old high here. See this red dotted line? You broke through this here. So this is about you going lower, and you're catching yourself, and you're catching your lows, so that you can start to break through that barrier here, or that ceiling, and get over the hump here. And once you get to that point, this is like the recovery phase. So as you're going down, you're going to recover yourself, and you're going to start to break through to that level. So this is the recovery. So you're recovering, and you're not going lower and going on the downward trend. You're going on the upward trend, and you're having that growth that's breaking through the old highs, right? And then you have the boom. So this is when you actually break through the old high here. So it's like your boom, and this is something that we have. It's like an inside thing with our group and that are inside of my program. Is every time you close a client, it's like a boom, or every time you have a win, it's a boom, right? So these are things you're breaking through to the next level. It's a boom. So we have the boom phase where you're breaking through, you're smashing through that barrier that was basically limiting you before, because you caught it, you recovered, and you recuperated from the downward spiral, and now you're on the upward trend, right? And so you're basically making new higher highs and new higher lows, right? And so you're on that upward growth trend, and that's why the trend is key. And you want to recover and really start to see your patterns of existence, so you can start to catch them, recuperate, recover, break through, and get that boom, and start to get and break through that level. And once you break through this level, once you get some wins, once you start to get to that next level, you get some success. What you want to do is you want to start to observe yourself. You want to catch all the habits, the successes, the wins, the actions, the decisions, everything that you're doing that got you past that level, and you want to start to see your trend and see how everything that you were doing got you to that level. And you want to really catch the highs, and you want to start to feed the ups, and you want to start to really eliminate the lows or the troughs in your life, right? And so once you break through to that next level, the biggest thing is observing them, seeing what you're doing, questioning them. What are you doing in this time that was different from before? Really starting to sit down and reflecting, analyzing, and seeing all the data points and everything that you're doing to break through to that next level. Then what you want to do is you want to set a new low point. You want to set a new low point and set a new standard for yourself of that's the lowest you're willing to accept up for yourself, right? Because like I said, you don't achieve your highest dreams, you achieve the lowest version of yourself and the standards on what you're willing to accept from yourself. So it's very, very paramount, and it's vital for yourself to basically set this as the new low, right? Set this dotted line as the new low, and now that's your lowest point that you're willing to accept, and now you can start to really stack these and create that exponential growth. So this is very, very key. You know, really want to analyze this stuff and really just make sure that you're setting that standard for yourself, and you will not settle for anything less than that. Because once you can do that and you're really like relentless towards it, that's when you're going to see some massive, massive growth. Like I'm telling you, like for myself, like it's been absolutely, I haven't even scratched the surface on this. Let's just put it that way. And when I started to do this, this is when my life changed. This is when I moved out of my basement. I got into this penthouse here downtown Toronto. My business started booming, pulling in like, you know, multiple $100,000 a month, right? So this is what really helped me take off. And it was really no like business tactics. Obviously those are key, and like having different strategies and plans and, you know, all this stuff is really, really, really key. This stuff will be more profitable for you than anything else you will ever do, because this is actually real breakthrough moments that you're going to be experiencing, that you can stack your wins, stack your momentum, and really break through to that next level. So this is key, really setting new standards, really holding yourself to those, and not making any excuses, and being relentless towards that, and eliminating all the negatives and only feeding the positive and the ups. So that's what you need to do, and this is what I like to call like the recuperation stage or the recovery stage. And you're going to be doing this. This is like breakthrough patterns. So this is, I'll just put it up here so you guys can see. So this next one is the momentum stacking or the exponential growth stage. So I wanted to show you this one. So this is the growth that you're experiencing, and this is over time again. So same kind of thing. And essentially what we're going to be doing, it's a little bit the light there, but we're using that same graph or that same recuperation or recovery stage here, and we're going to be stacking them. So once you break through, that's the new low, and you're going to be stacking them over time, right? And if you stack these consistently, and you just submit the time, you submit the patience, but you're urgent in the day-to-day, so you're patient, but you're urgent, so patient urgency is key. But if you're really urgent in the day-to-day, but you're patient over time, and you're willing to submit to time, you can start to stack these, and you're going to start to see that J-curve. This is how you experience that J-curve, is by stacking your wins, stacking your lows, feeding your ups, and starting to basically setting new standards for yourself and your business, everything and what you're willing to accept as the lowest point, and starting to make that the new low. And that's how you're going to start to really scale and create that exponential growth curve. So you can see that here. And that's what I call momentum stacking. So this is really paramount, and it's really the key to everything that all of my success up until this point. So I highly recommend you guys really utilize this stuff, and this is how it really works, is by stacking your wins, stacking your successes, stacking the momentum, so you can really achieve the paramount, the real growth stage that you want within your business, with your personal life, within every single facet of your existence. And another note on this is everything in life is fractal, meaning that if you don't know what fractal patterns are, go look up fractal patterns. Change the game for you. I learned them in trading. I learned them through Facebook ads, how all that stuff works. Fractal patterns are key, and everything in life is fractal, meaning that what happens on a very small scale will happen on a larger scale. And I'll give you a very prime example. So what happens on a very small scale? So for an example, if you're, say you're working, you're having a really productive day, your focus, your concentration is really dialed in, and you just say you have some free time, or you just finish a session for like 3 hours, whatever, deep work session, and you come out of that state, and you go and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go get a haircut now, or I'm gonna go get a coffee, and you walk out, and now you broke that momentum, you broke that flow state, or that that focus, that concentration, to go do something like that. That's kind of an irrelevant decision that's not really going in line with what you're currently doing. Like, and this happens all the time. Like, I remember I used to do that stuff when I was in the basement. I would randomly go get a haircut, and I was just like completely spontaneous when I was working, right? And what happened on that small scale is that focus, that flow state can't stack, can't get any momentum, because you cut it off, and you're getting into that state, and you got the momentum, you got in some like that euphoria from like doing the work and actually getting yourself to that state of like that deep focus, because I know that focus in that area is very euphoric. You get into like this state where time slows down and you're just really in the zone. When you break that and you try to get back into it, you broke all the momentum, right? So even what happens on that small scale will happen on a large scale. So not necessarily meaning that this concentration, obviously the focus, concentration over time will start to stack momentum if you do it daily, and it'll start to really create that exponential curve for you in your business by having this channeled focus and energy. But to give you that example is like what happens on that small scale will happen on a larger scale. So you now set a new peak and a new trough for your concentration. Like, this is the peak, this is the trough, and then what you want to do is you want to really just release your attachment to that temptation and start to really break through. Because once you start to venture into that new territory, like that 6-hour deep work session, or like really 8 hours of like just intense focus and concentration, that's going to be really testing your brain, your mental faculties, all this stuff, so that it'll help you over time, and that will compound exponentially. But if you start to cut that off and you have a peak where you stop, and it's just like subconsciously pulling you in these temptations to go do something else, like get a haircut, check your phone, check your social media, or go get a coffee and just completely break that state, it's gonna limit you and inhibit your growth over time. So what happens on that small scale happens on the large scale. But I'll tell you this, if you push through that temptation, you start to take action, you start to really stack the momentum, these decisions that you're making, these small, seemingly insignificant decisions and actions that you're going to be taking will start to compound exponentially. And that's why I call it like that momentum stacking, really achieve that exponential growth. So you really want to, limit that. And like I said, the fractal pattern from there will stem into other areas. So like, for example, if you get to a certain level revenue-wise within your business, that is now the peak, right? And then say your lowest month or your, average month is, say for example here, you're going to be basically going and oscillating between the two extremes, right? And so if you get to that certain level and you break through, so like say $100,000 a month is your goal, and you break through 100K a month, right? Well, you want to set that as a new low point and start to scale from there, right? But most people, what they do when they hit a big month, they'll go blow some money on some stupid shit, maybe a watch or whatever. It's good to reward yourself, but if you reinvest, you can just really take your business to a new height. So really just seeing like what you're doing on a small scale. So the seemingly insignificant actions or decisions that you're doing on a daily basis will compound and just get bigger on a bigger scale. So whether that's when you grow your business bigger, well, that's you're making bigger decisions that are more costly, more significant within your life and your business and the growth of where you're going. So even the small decisions you make on a day-to-day, they're fractal. So you got to be conscious of these, and that's why the fractal is these small little patterns start to stack themselves over time, right? So what happens here will start to grow and start to compound exponentially. And then you have this bigger growth curve, which then you could stack this big growth curve, right? And it's so just what's happening on a small level happens on a bigger, larger scale. And I learned this in trading. So like 15-minute, 1-minute charts, 5-minute charts, 15-minute charts, they look the same as they do on a 4-hour or daily or weekly or monthly candle or quarterly chart, right? It's the same thing, and everything is fractal in nature. So be conscious of these fractal patterns. They're very, very powerful, and if used correctly, can grow your business, grow yourself into an absolute, force of nature to be reckoned with. So use this stuff and watch your life explode. Now, this goes into one of my last points that I want to make is like, momentum is kind of like pushing a stationary, train when you first get started, right? It's like pushing that boulder. You see those, images online where like you're pushing a boulder up the hill. Well, it's like pushing a stationary train. It's very, very hard to get it going. Like, a lot of force. You need a lot of, velocity. You need a lot of, stuff to get it moving, right? To get the actual train starting to move a bit. But once it starts to move, and once you get up to the point where you're being consistent, you're watching your patterns, you're getting these things in place, and you sort of push the train and it's going like 100 miles per hour, there's absolutely nothing in its way that will stop it. It'll just crush through through buses, through other trains. It'll just push right through because it has so much momentum, has that velocity, that driving force that's pulling it forward. So it starts out kind of like a stationary train, but consistency, managing these different things, putting them in place is what's going to start to propel you down and get you further, and having just gravitational pull once you start to get the train moving, right? It's going to be that driving force that's going to push you regardless if you do anything. But you have to get past that point. You have to track your patterns of existence. You have to stack them through momentum stacking and your patterns of existence, stacking those things and your growth, so you can start to achieve that, thing where now your business is growing, it's just faster than ever, and it's, it's moving at God's speed, right? So, that's a very, very key component. And these three diagrams, what I'm going to do in the comments or the description actually of this video, I'm going to put together basically like a cheat sheet, something that I've shared with my clients that you can get access to for free. You can download it, and I want you to first utilize this first sheet here, which is mapping out your patterns of existence. So this is, like I said, this is going to go for every single thing in your life. Your bank account, how much money you have on a average month at the peak and the lowest point, and you're going to start to put in your your gym, your meditation, your reading, your learning, your just every single aspect of your life. The state of your fogginess in your mind when you're in the morning. What's the state that you're in and on an average day? Your gym, the state of your car, every single thing that you can think of, you want to map them on what's the height of it, what's the low point, and then start to trace the root cause downstream to find the absolute root cause of it, question it, observe it, and start to see how you can basically stop it and start to push through and break through using the recovery phase and start to break through your new lows, set new standards for yourself, and then stack the momentum to get to that next level. So I'm going to put these in the comments section or the description section below. And go check it out. And then I'm also going to link together a free training that I did that I focus on helping people really scale and grow their businesses without spending money on ads or paid methods and stuff like that. Using LinkedIn, we automate the process, fill the pipeline, help you grow the business. So if you're interested, I'll drop a link there as well in the description. You can check it out if you want. That's cool too. And I want you to also like and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be releasing a video every single week, so you guys can check it out. And leave me a comment. So I'm going to be checking and replying to every single comment. So leave me a comment what you found was the most valuable in this video that you found, or just key takeaways in general. And let me know any other videos that you want to see, like anything else that that I've talked about that you want to learn more about, or just anything like that. Just drop it in the comments, and I'll make sure to like your comment and reply to you. And that's it for this video. If you have anything else, just go ahead and click the links in the description, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.